Hello and welcome to our beloved parishioners. I'm Bailee.
And I'm Ashley.
And this is Praise Be to Pod. I liked that.
We did it.
I was so nervous.
New segment.
Yeah, new segment. I love it. Okay, so we are on episode 3 now. Very exciting. We're doing it. We're doing a podcast. So let's go ahead and start with our first segment, which is What's on Your Heart. So without further ado, Ashley, what is on your heart?
Okay. I've been thinking a lot lately about when specifically women say they married their best friend.
Okay.
Because I hate it.
Oh. I wasn't expecting it to go there.
Like, maybe best friend.
Why do you hate it?
I don't think of my partner as my best friend. They're my partner.
Yeah.
And I also have the opinion, which might not be popular, but men come and go.
Well, I'll say a couple things about that.
That's great.
So I feel like men are more likely to marry their best friend than women are.
Well, men don't have friends.
Well, some of them do, but it's their wife.
My husband has one friend.
He has one friend?
One friend in town. He has lots of friends who don't live here.
Yeah.
He has one friend in town.
Yeah.
He's having a baby in like a month, so I'm terrified.
That's fair.
He's going to ask me to go to every concert and every game. And he has so many hobbies.
He does. I think that it's like, best friend is probably not a word I'd imagine like using in that, like, but definitely friend. Do you like think that you should be with someone who's your friend?
I don't know.
It doesn't matter to you.
I mean, I guess, but like, it's more than that. It's not like my friend.
But I don't think that anybody who is saying that we're just friends.
I just thought this was going to be more pro-women friendship conversation than it was going to be like defending that my partner is my friend. Well, so that's what's on my heart, Bailee. I don't know.
All right, fair enough.
What's on your heart?
Okay.
Any friends?
This is actually, no, my family, actually.
Do you consider your family your friends?
Some of them, definitely.
Oh, that's cute. I don't have siblings, so I don't get it.
Sure. Well, my siblings we're very close.
Yeah.
So what's been on my heart is, so like most of my family is still in this world, and I love my like evangelical world.
Yeah. Yeah. And the earth.
And in this planet. Yeah. There's still there's still Earth side, yes. But I'm worried about the possibility of them listening to these episodes because they know that I do not express faith the same way that they do for the most part. They also know that I like lean much further left on the political spectrum than they do. But I have just been a lot more mindful to be, like, I'm just very careful with how I talk about it around them. And I think that because I'm typically going onto their turf when we spend time together, they are seemingly more comfortable talking about what they want to talk about. And I feel like I have to be really careful about what I say because I'm like, it's supposed to set an example or something.
Yeah.
But this is my turf now. Yeah. And I think that some people are going to hear some things that they don't want to hear.
Yeah.
And I think that I've wrestled with it a lot and it makes me sad, but I also think it's necessary. And I just have to accept the fact that just like how I don't agree with everything they say, they're not going to agree with a lot of the things I say. But I also like want to be careful with how I talk about people because I think that there's something that feels a little unfair about talking about people who can't defend themselves or tell their side of the story. And I get that. And I know that like, especially my childhood memories, they're childhood memories. Like I wasn't an objective like person like viewing it. So I feel for that. I mean, like I want to be careful and protective, but I also like, this is my podcast and I want to tell the truth. So I've just been kind of wrestling with that a little bit. If that makes any sense.
Yeah. I think even like with what you were saying last week about imposter syndrome or like 2 weeks ago, it's kind of goes hand in hand, like just kind of thinking about yourself in a different lens, like putting content out in the world is super scary and might go nowhere. Who knows?
Yeah.
But
my family, if they see like me, oh, like I have a podcast, like they probably will be the ones to like listen to it. They're still very supportive of me. Yeah. But they might be a little surprised. So if you're listening to this, I love you. So, like, I don't know what to tell you.
And I mean, I think just as much as we feel like it's important to be open-minded. I think that's a value we hold for everybody.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
if you're not, you're not.
But. Yeah. And you never know, people can surprise you too.
Yeah.
So no, that's kind of been what I've been thinking about. But anyway, so our topic today, kind of the other side of the coin of our episode last week, we're going to talk about my origin story and my introduction to evangelical Christianity, that kind of a thing. So kind of to like warm up to that conversation, I created a little game for us. I call it Testify or Lie.
Amazing.
Very similar to the format of True or False. Okay. So you may have heard it called True.
Okay.
Yes, Testify is true, Lie is false. Okay. But in like biblical terminology. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read off a situation or a scenario. And I want you to tell me, testify or lie, to whether or not you think that actually happened to me growing up.
Okay.
Or that was an actual experience that I had. So you think that's something you can do?
Yes,
testify
I'm
or lie?
scared. Yeah.
Okay, here we go. All right. So my first time ever attending summer Bible camp, I was sent home for violating their modesty policy by wearing a 2-piece bathing suit. Testify or lie?
I think lie. You would never do that at summer camp.
Yeah,
Your mom wouldn't have allowed you to buy it.
Yeah. So you're right, actually. I didn't like own a 2-piece swimsuit. I think that my mom's rules were probably more strict than the church camp. Yes. I will say when I was a little bit older, I got to start wearing tankinis because they covered the same amount of skin. But like
for a tall girl, they helped you a little bit.
Well, I think that was a part of it, was that like one pieces were just like genuinely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Now I love one pieces, but I have like a Pamela Anderson Baywatch one piece. So it's like honestly basically just lingerie, but it is a loophole. So I could wear it to summer camp, but my ass would be out.
Mom approved?
No, I don't think she's seen me in it.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that she would be like, you look very nice in it, but there's not much left to the imagination. She's a nice lady. But anyway. Okay, next one. Growing up, I was not allowed to watch the show That's So Raven because Raven was a sidekick.
Oh, true.
Oh, testify?
Testify.
Yeah. No, that's true. Yeah,
yes.
I was not allowed to, which
of course,
sucked.
Demonic.
I loved That's So Raven, but demonic activity, obviously.
Yeah. I didn't grow up with parents like this, but I know a lot of people.
You're familiar with the tropes. Okay, yeah. Definitely.
My parents had much stranger rules about TV.
Fair, yeah. Well, it kind of like, I feel like a lot of evangelical parents kind of like model their rules off of other parents. So I remember watching That's So Raven and it not really being a problem until, mom or dad heard something about like, oh, that show is demonic. It has a psychic. And then they had to intervene. But I think at face value, like if I'm remembering this correctly, I don't think it was that big of a deal until they were like, oh no, we can't have demonic activity in this home.
Like this shows our age gap a little bit, like we're 10 years apart. But
yeah.
I wasn't allowed to watch Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
Yeah.
Not because it was a witch, but because she was defiant to her parents.
That was why I couldn't watch
like
Rugrats.
she knew everything.
Yeah, she was a witch. She probably did.
It was like she was obviously a better witch than them, and the cat was the smartest one.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway,
amazing. Okay, next scenario. At a charismatic youth camp I attended as a teen, the camp staff performed a drama skit that was supposed to imitate the experience of being sent to hell and burning alive.
Oh, I've been in that skit. Totally.
Were you there? Yeah, testify.
Oh yeah, theater kid.
I hated that. But they were very good actors because I truly did feel like their flesh was melting off their skin. So, okay, well, that's awesome. You clearly know this world. Okay. Growing up, my family refused to put up a Christmas tree due to its pagan origins that predated the advent of Christianity.
Well, that one's a hard one. I'd say lie. Because Minnesota and Christmas trees, it's like so Norwegian.
Yeah. It was a lie. We did have our little devil tree.
Okay.
And we loved it.
Yeah.
That was a loophole that we were okay with. Okay. The Passion of the Christ was my first R-rated movie I saw.
Probably true. Testify.
So no, it was a lie. Oh. My first R-rated film was Saving Private Ryan, which I feel like...
War is okay, though.
Well, war is okay.
Yeah, especially World War II.
If it's not going to be The Passion of the Christ, it has to be a patriotic movie. So I feel like it two sides. Braveheart, the Patriot, those could have also like filled in that as well. But it was Saving Private Ryan.
I would say the affinity for World War II history is horrifying to me about all men today.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, they really like that.
Yeah.
Christians love to talk about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what side do they think they're on? Like, I don't.
I mean, they can tell you something, but anyway. Next. All right. So this is the last one. The evangelical university I attended enforced a curfew for all students.
A lot of them did. I would say Testify.
Testify, yep. I had a curfew as an adult.
What was it?
Oh, I mean, it was like later, but like 1 p.m., I think.
Wait, 1 p.m.?
Or 1 a.m.? 1 a.m., Jesus. Yeah, 1 a.m.
Oh, that's pretty late.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't always that way. In fact, so my cousin also attended ORU long before me. And when she was there, the girls had a earlier curfew than the guys, if you can believe it. It would have been like early 2000s too. So this isn't like a 50s rule. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Yeah. I looked at it.
It should be the other way around.
Well, I would agree with you. This was their reasoning. Because the guys had a later curfew because they wanted the guys to have a little extra time to get home in case they were dropping a lady off.
Were they allowed to do that?
I guess so.
Okay.
We couldn't go into the guys' dorms, but I think
be
you
in a
could drop
car
them
together.
off. Yes, I think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, like I knew people who went to Pillsbury in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of it?
No.
It's like I think it's closed now.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's true or not, but I don't think it exists anymore. But they had like a really strict curfew, and like they weren't allowed to be in a car together, and they would get a ticket. Yeah.
No, I was in a car with boys. Don't you worry
you were
about
in
me.
Wild Bible college.
I was. I actually got into like, I think because we had a curfew and because we weren't allowed to have boys in our dorm, sneaking around put me in way more compromising situations than if we could have just gone back to our dorm room. Like we almost, like, I don't want to go into it, but we almost like were in danger because we would like park in a field and then someone would be like I'll share it in one episode, but there was like a run-in with like, I don't even know, some like, we were told that there was like an end of a street that like if you go there, there's like people guarding like a meth lab. And then we went there and like there were people there and they like ran us out. Yeah, it was scary. And that was not even the worst story. Anyway, that's the game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that was a good one. I'm so excited to hear your story today.
Okay.
Bailee's origin story is our topic today.
Yes.
So I don't know if I know your whole story altogether. So this is exciting.
Yeah.
So what would you say, like, how did it first start for you?
Yeah. So I had always been in Christianity because my parents were pastors. Mm-hmm. And so there was never a time that I didn't know my parents as very charismatic Christians.
Yeah.
So my dad went to Rhema Bible College in Tulsa, which is like a word of faith fundamentalist. Oh, you're familiar?
Of course.
Oh, great. So he went there. I have some of my earliest memories are there because we went with him. He was already married and had some kiddos. I was one of them. And then we moved back and they planted a small charismatic church in rural Minnesota. Mm-hmm. So I have like always been exposed to it. And I think I talked about this a little bit in our first episode, but when I was talking about the puppet ministry curriculum and I was reading how the like person who wrote it was like, this is a curriculum for people who are tired of lukewarm ministry for their kids. That is very, I think, specific to charismatic Christians, that they don't really have different material for their children than they do for adults.
Yeah.
They think that like it's, I guess, condescending, and that like you should start like teaching your kid how to like, you know, be prepared for the world. So I just remember having like it was so intense right out the gate. Like we would have like drills of like evangelizing to people. We would like be asked questions like, what would you do if someone held a gun to your head and told you to like, you had to renounce Christianity? Like I had experiences like
Rachel's
that.
Tears.
The Columbine. Yeah, this was probably Columbine time too. So like that mixed in with it. Prime time for martyrdom romanticizing. And then obviously we had a subscription to Voice of the Martyrs. Yeah. So that was, you know, also a thing that happened. And then also like I was earnest, and I really wanted to be a person that God would approve of and love. And so I didn't have, when I was really, really young, a lot of resistance to it. Like I just remember being like spiritually precocious and wanting to like dive in really deep. So that was kind of like my initial like spark and introduction to it. But I was very wide-eyed, and I cared a lot about it.
What do you feel like what part did you connect to the most?
I just like
for me, it was boys.
Yeah, not boys. So honestly, like I had just like a major fear of hell.
Okay.
And I also had a love for people. So the thought of people I loved going to hell was so unbearable that I thought about it all the time, like constantly, because I was like, I can't like, I felt a lot of shame anytime I would have a conversation with somebody that I wasn't evangelizing in. And also like sometimes I would go as like an elementary school age kid, like I would go to a friend's house and I'd come back and my parents would ask me like, did you evangelize? Like it was like very serious.
Professional Christian.
Professional Christian. Child labor though this time around. But I like, it was a very fear, but like we also like a common cliche is like, it's not about a religion, it's a relationship. So it's like, oh, this is love motivated. And I would say two sides of the same coin, fear of death and also like a zealous love for Christ, which I guess exists in the same like expression of faith. But yeah, that's what I would say.
So what was like your all-in peak church era?
Yeah. So there were like little times, like growing up, like different parts of my adolescence where I really like leaned in. So, when I was 6 years old, my dad was diagnosed with cancer and we were a Word of Faith church. So we believed that like the more faith that we had, the more we prayed, that he would be healed, that it was like a promise of God. And I remember being looped in on this thing, like we got to pray for dad. And so that I was like every waking hour, I was like, I felt so responsible for the outcome of the situation. So I felt like I dove in really deep during that period of time. And then I'm trying to think of like, I was such a spitfire and I had so many questions. So I would just like go back and forth a lot. But I think that maybe one of my other times in my life where I was just so all in is after high school, I went to the International House of Prayer, IHOP in Kansas City, which is this like ministry organization that's charismatic, and it is all in. And we would pray in the prayer room for like 6 hours a day.
Wait, you went after high school, like before college?
Yes.
Oh, I always thought it was after college.
No,
okay. Did you do like a gap year or something?
I did, yes.
At IHOP. So you're like 18.
Yes. So I was like 18. Wow. I think maybe
from
like
rural Minnesota.
From rural Minnesota,
yeah. Kansas City boiler room. Boiler room. Was that what it was called? The boiler room?
Prayer room?
They had like some sort of like video streaming that was the boiler room.
Oh, maybe. I mean, I was there, so I didn't ever stream it.
Okay.
So, that was just like maybe that was definitely the most like religiously radical times of my life, where I dove in so severely. And I was so zealous and so passionate. And I made some of like the most like dear friends of my life during that time, because it was just such a crash course on Christianity. And it was like, I would say like if a charismatic church is here, IHOP is here. Like it is maybe one of the most intense expressions of Christianity is at IHOP. And then I'll probably talk about this a little bit later, but if you're familiar with IHOP, you probably know that it's gotten some really bad press lately because their leader, Mike Bickle, was accused and found guilty of grooming young women in sexual assault and spiritual abuse. And I was never privy to that, but it's definitely like, it's so obvious how something like that can happen because of the way like the system is set up there. Like first off, like you're just like, so they base a lot of their like praise and worship songs based off of like lyrics in the Song of Solomon because they believe that it was like an allegory of like Christ in the church, but all it did was just make everyone mad horny. like celibate. So we were just like, we wanted to smash so bad. every last one of us. It was just so erotic.
Like young adults.
Yeah, it's like we're in our early 20s. Like it's like
vow of celibacy.
Vow of celibacy.
Till you're married.
We're in, and there were some cuties too there.
Yeah.
And so it was just like painfully horny. And obvious and it's like if you hear some of the songs too, you're like, is this about sex or Jesus? And the answer would be yes.
Yeah. Was this like Misty Edwards? Was she from there?
Yep, she was from there too. So a lot of the lyrics were like that. And honestly too, like in certain instances when people would like address like, oh, this passage in Song of Solomon is about like sex, but you're listening to it, they would say like, yes, like we believe that like intimacy with God is comparable to sex with a man and a woman. So I'm horny as hell.
I'm having a flashback to like when I went to Arizona. I remember, like I talked about last week, I had such bad culture shock with like the Christian culture there.
Yeah.
I remember one of the men that I worked with said that he was engaged on Facebook.
Okay.
And I asked my boss, like, is he engaged? And he's like, to Jesus. Thank God that guy's like normal today.
Are we sure? At that time, we need to check in on him. We need a wellness call.
He was like very into the IHOP stuff and stuff. And like, it was so horny. Like you had to pretend that you were married to God because, oh my God, the lyrics were crazy. And it would go on and on and on. And it was like,
yes,
someone's
absolutely.
going to blow their load.
It's like repetition. Like obviously like songs in and of themselves typically have a climax, but like how did they climax in their songs?
For real.
Yeah, and there was also like
it's emotional.
A vocal inflection or like dialect of IHOP people that was just a little breathier than, Bethel or YWAM or any of those other places.
The Bethel and the IHOP, they were definitely the strongest.
Yeah, definitely.
Real dramatic.
Yeah.
That charismatic, dramatic voice.
Exactly. So anyway, because of that, obviously I don't think that there's anything wrong with being horny and loving Jesus. And how that relates to Mike Bickle is that I think that there were very blurred lines that made it so that there was a direct path where like a male leader could, like I remember being prayed over by Mike Bickle a lot, and he would like grab the back of my neck to do that. Things that like wouldn't really be allowed in like other, but it's just like, oh, like we are just like so in it. So it was just like, there was just a more well-worn path towards like an abusive situation. And so like, I think that that's part of it too.
It sounds pretty culty.
Oh yeah. Easy money.
Yeah.
Very culty.
Did you have to pay to be there?
Yeah.
Was it expensive?
Not as much as some of the other ministries were. But yeah, I mean, it was not cheap, and you didn't get like paid to be there either.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like tuition.
Kind of, yeah. And they did have an unaccredited university, IHOP that they would encourage people to go to after. I never did that, but some people did that too.
Perfect.
To get there. They were also like, is it eschatological? They're an end times cult, I guess. So they believe that it was within our lifetime that Christ would return and that the 7-year tribulation would occur.
Yes.
So we were like prepping people for this experience.
Yes, you're bringing back so many memories for me right now.
Yeah, and that's how I grew up too. We were like eschatological. I think I'm butchering that enunciation. Yeah. But we like believe that Jesus would come back in our lifetime. And so like most of our lives are in preparation for welcoming him back. And an indicator that Jesus was going to come back soon would be if Jewish people started returning to Israel. So after Israel became like an official state, I think that a lot of the like evangelical people were just like, oh my God, it's happening. So like all of the like weird toxic Zionist like ideologies about Israel like just are so amplified in the charismatic church.
Yeah, I can't wait till we do an end times episode.
Oh, I maybe the one I'm most excited for.
Yeah, we have that like as slated as the foundations.
Yeah,
it gets weird.
It's weird. I have read at IHOP. I read the New Testament 6 times, and Revelation is a banger. Like there's a lot of good shit in it, I will say. And it's like, I think now, if I had to guess, it's clearly like historically the writer is clearly experiencing like Rome's colonization of Israel and is like lamenting on like what Nero is doing. And that's deeply painful. It's basically just like, it's a book about colonization, basically. And like how like when you're experiencing that, like the overthrowing of your holy city, that has to feel like the end of the world. Yeah. And so that's why it sounded like that. So if you read it from that perspective, like it is actually deeply moving, and it's a great allegory.
Well,
yeah. Anyway,
I don't really have much interest in reading Revelation right now.
Would you like me to read it to you?
No, I would never.
We should just have an episode where I read the entire book of Revelation.
And I will take a nap.
That's fair.
Okay, so where were kind of the cracks in the foundation? Like when things stopped sitting right with you, or when you were like, maybe I shouldn't be in this weird cult, or...
Yeah. Well, like I said earlier, I mean, I've gone back and forth for a really long period of time. So when I was 7, my dad ended up passing away. And like I said earlier, like we truly believe that if we prayed hard enough and had the purest amount of faith, that he would be healed. So when he wasn't, like I had like an adult level crisis of faith as a 7-year-old.
Yeah.
And I felt so responsible for it because I was like, oh, well, certainly it's not the adults in my life who didn't pray hard enough. It must have been me. So I took that responsibility on. And my family and church continued on with that word of faith belief. They're like, we don't know why this happened. Clearly there was something going on. Maybe someone had doubt in their heart. Maybe there was a secret sin that somebody wasn't confessing. So like immediately I just like, I mean, it was heartbreaking. And so like a lot of my worldview around Christianity was like a little bit of like a Job situation. Like, God, what are you doing?
Yeah.
And so that was kind of my lens for faith. So I got really comfortable with doubt, I will say. And I didn't really like shy away from it too much. I really wrestled with God, I guess, and faith since I was from 7. Yeah.
Wow.
And I have like, even like memories of like, I remember before my dad died, overhearing him talk about this couple he ended up finding out were gay. And I asked him, I was like, oh, what is gay? And he explained it to me, obviously from a lens of it being sinful. And I just remember being like, that doesn't sound bad. Like, because it didn't sound like any other sin I'd ever heard of. Like boys kissing, like what, you're going to put that up with murder? Yeah. That's insane. Yeah. So like I already was just starting to like, I can't explain it, but I don't remember a time where I wasn't like, are we sure about that? And my poor mother kind of had to deal with like so much arguing from me. And I was just like such a like I would with so much like fury and anger would just like wrestle with the word. I was like, why do you believe this when it says this in the Bible? Or like, how can we be so sure about this? Like it was just always a part of my life.
Wow.
And like, I even remember like in high school, and I'm really ashamed of this. I was not in the right when I did this, but I was very like, I was a Republican. And I like to prove like, because I was so confused on this issue, I like wrote a paper and did a presentation about how like gay marriage shouldn't be legalized, which like, if you were in that classroom, like, I'm so sorry. Like, you don't have to forgive me. You don't have to like, be like, oh, but she had this and this happen. That's not what I'm asking. Like, I was not in the right, but I promise I was trying to prove it to myself because I, in my heart of hearts, did not believe that there was anything wrong with it. It was just theologically chaotic to me. It didn't make any sense. It seemed sloppy, the application of the passages onto that issue. So I was just constantly wrestling with it. But I think when I really started to be like, I don't know if I believe, or was like after IHOP, I had...
You were there a year?
I was there 6 months.
Oh, 6 months, okay.
Right after the internship, I had like really intense like nervous breakdown, which now in hindsight, because I was actually going to stay in Kansas City, I was told by leadership, like, you should stay here. Yeah. And now in hindsight, I'm like, I almost wonder if that was discernment on my part, like seeing like where it divulged into. But at the time, it was just like my mental health was just shot. And it felt like my entire like worldview started unraveling after that. So yeah, when I like officially, like after IHOP, decided like I was completely done with that kind of stuff, I did like this really rebellious first time as an atheist thing where I went to Barnes & Noble and I bought like Carl Sagan books. Like I think The Demon Haunted World was one of them, which is about like how like it's not real, basically. Okay. And then like I think it's The Origin of Species, the Charles, like the just classic evolution book that Charles Darwin wrote. I thought I was hot shit for getting that book. But yeah, I just rebellious. I got really into it, and I was just like, oh yeah, I'm an atheist. I don't believe in God anymore.
And how did you go from this like newfound atheism to Bible school in Tulsa, Oklahoma?
I was already enrolled. And I was like,
so I guess I gotta go.
Yeah, I think I just thought that I had one last Hail Mary in me. Or I was like, I'll go, I'll see it out for like, because I really wanted to go to the University of Minnesota, but I got waitlisted, and the other school I got into was too expensive. So this one was just like, okay, like it's in Tulsa, which is a city that I have a lot of family in. So I just kind of wanted to move forward with it. But I fully anticipated that I was going to transfer out of ORU after doing a semester.
Okay.
Yeah.
And did the cracks continue at ORU?
Yeah. So I got more comfortable with just like arguing and I guess like wrestling with my professors. Like I remember getting into like a lot of like arguments and stuff with them, and just about like faith, or it mostly came from a political lens, because at that point in time I was loud and proud on the left.
Okay.
That was like not really an issue that I wrestled with anymore. I was very left leaning. That actually started happening at IHOP, to be honest. Actually, I remember that they went in as a group, tried to get all of us to go protest at Planned Parenthood. And I was the only one to refuse, actually. Yeah, if you can believe it. I think maybe there was one other guy, but like the whole group went. I was like, absolutely not.
So were you like generally pretty provocative at ORU, like in that culture?
Like sexually provocative?
No,
or like,
no.
Oh.
Like were you provoking a lot of conversation?
Yes,
and like
that was like my reputation. Yeah.
Okay.
And it wasn't necessarily negative. I think people enjoyed it because it did come from like an earnest place. Like I wasn't just trying to be contrarian.
Yeah.
I really wanted to like figure out what it was I believed. And I started warming up to faith a little bit more after that. And then I started going to, I just started to be like, maybe I'm not as closed off to this as I was. I kind of reopened back up again. And then I started going to a church in Tulsa. I started like volunteering for Young Life, which is a very Christian organization. And then I started kind of experiencing more of an intersection between social justice and faith at that point in time. There was a police brutality situation in Tulsa that I started getting like engaged in like anti-racism efforts there. And I found the intersection of faith in there. And then I felt like it started to be like, okay, yeah, like I can do this. If that makes sense.
And when did you really start deconstructing or stepping away from that world?
I would say after ORU, I moved to Los Angeles. I was in Tulsa a couple more years and I moved to LA. And I actually reconnected with some people that had also gone to ORU and moved to LA. But there, I did start going to a church and I started doing like prison ministry. But then like after that, and then like I was there for a year and a half. And then when I started actually moving back to the Twin Cities, like I went back to like not believing at all. I like referred to myself as agnostic. I was a little bit more open-minded. Atheism also just like wasn't in style anymore. Yeah. If that makes sense.
It's too sure.
Yeah. But I just like, completely left the faith. And if I'm being entirely honest, like one of the things that really solidified it for me was just seeing the ramifications of Trump being elected. Because a lot of the reasons why I still stayed with faith was because like the people I really respected in my life were people of faith. But when I saw those people vote for Trump, I kind of started to be like, I don't know if I know what they're talking about, actually.
Yeah.
And it actually felt like an invitation to be like, there's no way that you're actually an example. Because this is just like, I thought, like, I knew you were a Republican, I knew you were conservative, but I thought certainly this man would have stopped you in your tracks.
Yeah.
But he didn't. And that was just like, oh, you are doing a different thing. You were doing Christian nationalism, not Christianity.
Yeah.
So that made that decision quite a bit easier. And then, I was fully out of it.
And where do you sit now?
Yeah, so I had kind of a return to faith situation during the pandemic where me and my roommate at the time were under the influence. And we were listening to Bon Iver's album, I think it's called 22 A Million. And it's accompanied, or you can purchase the album accompanied with this like art book. And I think it's like the art book is like inspired by the divine. And I was like flipping through it. I was getting really into the music. And I found this page. And to this date, I don't entirely know like what I was seeing and what was just maybe in my head. But it's like a piece of art where there's a highway, and aligned along the highway are telephone poles that are also crosses. And I saw like the body of Christ hanging off of them, and like my mind was like filling in that there was like blood pooling underneath it. And I had this just overwhelming experience of just being like Christ isn't in the places I thought he was. He's actually like in these like mundane experiences. Like I started really having this like, I guess like revelation of like the kingdom of heaven is among you, which is like something that people always say that like, it's very misinterpreted in Christianity where Jesus is like prophesying the end of the world, but it's actually, he's actually saying like it's here and now. And so that really, I mean, that's not a very profound experience to explain, but how it felt in my heart really like turned me back around. And then I was talking to a friend on the phone, and I was just like, I feel really like cut off from community right now. I really wish that there was a space where I could just like sit with people and talk about theology and spirituality, kind of more from a Christian lens, but like more open-minded. Like, I just wish that there was something like that. And my friend was like, "You mean a church?" I was like, "Oh, fuck, not again." And so that is when I started going to the church that we met at.
Yeah.
And so if you're asking me like where I am now, I'm a Christian. It's so embarrassing. Or like a Judeo-Christian with like a spiritual lens, or like spiritual with a Judeo-Christian lens, whatever. It's actually kind of crazy though, because I think after finding like progressive theology or like liberation theology, just very left-leaning theology, that is where it just like really clicked for me. And I have a very open-minded like view of it. I don't think that people go to hell for not believing in Jesus. I don't even think that like Jesus is the truth. But it is like, I think the like iteration of like the faith experience I've been given. And so I'm comfortable with that lens. Yeah. But I don't think that people who follow Islam are not also following God. And what's really interesting too is that like I've done a lot of like therapy and healing and separation from it. And now spirituality is like the sweet spot of my life. Like it's so easy and it shouldn't be. Like I joke with my friends all the time that the way I approach spirituality, it reminds me of like a kid whose like parents were both like liberal professors who are like, you can be anything you want to be and believe whatever you want. And they're like, I'm going to dabble in Buddhism. And like that's how, like the naivety that goes into it is how I feel about spirituality now, where I'm like actually open, like my eyes are wide open. And it feels really good. And obviously when it comes to like what's happening in the country and in the world with like the intersection of like the religious right and politics, whole other story. Definitely a lot of anger still there that I'm working through, but faith in and of itself, it feels really easy and light right now.
Good. Yeah. How are you feeling?
I feel good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add about your story?
Let me look.
From and back to faith?
No, I think I covered it. I'm satisfied. Obviously, like it's not super linear. Yeah. And so there's going to be like seemingly like a lot of like gaps and stuff in it. But yeah.
It was hard to even figure out how we should talk about our stories.
I know.
And gotta tell you guys, ChatGPT helped us.
She's a good girl.
She's our third co-host.
Yeah. She's good at wording things for sure.
Yeah. Well, we'd love to hear your story or any feedback you have about Bailee's story today, or maybe you went to IHOP or ORU or Barnes & Noble to get your atheist book. So you can write us on our website. There's a contact page at praisebetopod.com. You can find us on Instagram, praisebetopod, and YouTube, praisebetopod. So that's how you find us. And that's it for us. Blessed are the listeners, for they shall inherit a modest one-piece bathing suit that leaves everything to the imagination. Until next time, this is Ashley and Bailee on Praise Be to Pod.
Yeah.
It is finished.
See ya.